Congratulations for 2 years. Thank you for everything, and here's to many more Grandioda pansexual pride.
Pansexual pride. Thank you, dear. I didn't really plan on talking about this, but I thought when I was getting ready this morning, I thought I would. I've been doing this for 2 years now, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful time. An unexpected one. Never would have expected to be talking to this many people at once, that's for sure, in 2 years. But here's how it started. I'm going to lower the volume of the alerts.
Much love.
Can I do that? I can't do that. I can't do that. Can I do that? Can I do that? Remember, kids, the number 35. Okay, lower the alerts there. Okay, so where do I start? So, a long time ago, before there were planets, before there were stars, I was just floating around thinking, wow, I'd really like to exercise my ankles, and bam, the Earth was there. I landed and I became a content creator by hitting the ground hard enough it left a hole. But that's where it started, and this is where we are. What happened in between then? Well, I'm about to tell you, dears. I'm about to tell you. All those years ago, before names were on countries, there was the drowny parts and the walkie parts. Humans quickly found out that the walkie parts were better than the drowny parts unless you had a boat. But we also learned, through the invention of the wheel and fire and all these other things, that life is all about your memories and learning new things and becoming better versions of our forefathers and them before me. But because I was the first one, I was like, oh God, this is exhausting. There's no textbook to learn how to handle your own life personally. You can learn a lot of things from other people, but the best. When she said the beginning, she meant the beginning. I swear, I'm getting there. Granny, did you invent the wheel? No, but I encouraged them. I said, you're doing so well. And thus the wheel was born. But let's fast forward now. You know, there's revolutions and all kinds of things. Wars have happened. And here I am in 2009, 10, I think it was 2010. I was living in New Zealand at the time, and I was really struggling, because I had a lot of energy for life. I've always, up until that point, had a huge passion for doing things and learning things and wanting to get out there, and I wasn't always like that. I was not always like that. But I really had found myself. I was excited. I wanted to travel. I wanted to meet more people. I wanted to get out there in the world. So I was offered the opportunity to travel overseas and work for a traveling school, which was the first of its kind. It was very interesting. And one of my jobs was to go ahead of the school and go to the different countries and make sure that the school was going to be welcomed there properly, figuring out where they're going to stay and everything. This was, I think, about 2010. But I went all across the world. I went to so many different places, and I learned so much. And I can tell you right now, before we go any further, that the best education one can have is to travel, which is obviously very hard right now. But as soon as the borders open up, as soon as you have an opportunity to learn about just how small you are in the grand scheme of things, your mind will expand immensely. Immensely, dears. So I did a lot of traveling, and while I was traveling and working, I thought, well, what do I want to do next? And I thought, well, I'd always wanted to win an Oscar. I thought, I want to win an Oscar. I want to be like Meryl Streep. I want to get up there and I want to give a speech. Hell, even I practiced a few times in a mirror or a unoccupied shopping mall glass window. And I just always wanted to do some kind of performance, acting, dramatic acting. So after I finished working for the school, I moved to New York City. And that is where I studied an acting technique called the Meisner technique. Now, looking back, I wouldn't say that this was the best technique for me, but it was very valuable to learn how to do things differently. And a huge part of the Meisner technique is listening, hearing, and seeing properly. You develop this incredible sense of, if someone is talking to you with words, what am I actually hearing beyond the words? And I know that sounds all about wishy-washy, but really, sometimes people will say things to you. Their words mean something different to what they are actually telling you, which was a very interesting and valuable lesson I learned there. Your body says different things. Your face expressions, they say different things. And those are the things you pay attention. Words are invented for an opportunity to lie. However, humans themselves, face to face, have a very hard time being untruthful. And aside from, catching people out, whatever, that's not the point of this. The point is that if you can get truthful enough with anything that you do, you can really figure out what you want to do with your life. How truthful can you get? And there was a great quote in Sanford Meisner's book where, I don't know if he said this himself or it was someone else, but they were talking about how do you discover what it is that you want to do. And, I remember now. It was Letters to a Young Poet. And it was a poet conversing with someone who wanted to be a poet. And the poet was saying to the young poet, listen, do you want to be a poet or not? Do you want to be a poet or not? And this young poet's writing back going, well, yes, of course I want to be a poet. He says, yeah, but do you really want to be a poet? When you lie down at night in the dark of your room and you close your eyes and you ask yourself the question, do I want to be a poet? And regardless of any outside influences or lies that you might tell yourself, the answer you receive is very important. Great quote. The truth will piss you off, but then it will set you free. Grant totally lost me in this conversation. Well, listen up! Listen up! You chill, barbecue and foot massage. Anyway, this was one of the greatest lessons that I learned from the Meisner school, was this particular conversation that we were taught to learn about asking yourself unequivocally, what do I want to do? What do I really want to do? And I can tell you right now, you're going to ask yourselves that many times in the darkness of your room when you're alone and think you're not being influenced by outside influences. But you are. Once you can finally strip away all of the silliness in your life, all of the things that we think make up who we actually are as a person, all the things that hold us back and the fears of looking silly, you can really get an honest answer about who you are and what you want to do. So I used to ask myself this question all the time, what do I really want to do? And I really thought I wanted to win an Oscar. I really thought I wanted to win an Oscar. I thought, well, I want to win an Oscar. I want to be an actress. I want to do this. And no, it turns out, no, that's not really what I wanted to do. I was getting there. I was on the right track, but not quite. So anyway, I finished studying this technique, and I spent a couple of years working at different jobs in New York City. A lot of them were in nightlife because I loved meeting new people. I loved being able to work at night and work during the day. I was having to study to maintain my visa there in New York City. And I met all these wonderful people. My life was just on the up. Everything was going to plan. I was doing auditions for short films. I was doing web series. I thought, yes, this is it. This is it. I finally got this thing. But there was always something slightly off. There was always something that didn't quite make sense for me. I never felt like I was that talented in comparison to my co-workers, other actors. And it really got me. I thought, how in the hell, even when I was studying at that school, I thought, how in the hell are some of these people so natural? How are they so natural at what they do? Are you crying on command and doing all this stuff? Because they really wanted it. The only difference between an actor who gets a part and another actor is one of them wanted it more. It's simply how it is. I did not want to be a dramatic actor enough, and it was really hard for me to swallow that pill. It was really hard. I was in the right industry. I was focused on the wrong thing because I was in love with an idea and a dream rather than a truthful reality. The truth was pissing me off, but it was not yet setting me free. So I went through a period of, well, I'll just, I'll keep working and I'll just stay in New York City and I'll do different jobs. I had many different relationships. And I remember being in a relationship with this one man. And we were having a conversation one night about where we see ourselves. And I said, well, I see myself winning an Oscar. And he said, I see myself at a table surrounded by my family. They've all gone to Ivy League schools, and I'm in a job where I'm making a lot of money. And I almost dropped my fork. Because I realized, fork. Nope. No, this is not correct. This is not correct for me. And I realized we all really have different dreams and they're fine. But that was not for me, and that's fine. That's fine. It was okay that I'd made a wrong turn. But I realized the wrong turn and I didn't keep going down that way. That's important to do. But every wrong turn is just an easier path to the right turn. So next up, I got a job. And it's funny because that particular person who I just mentioned was a large influence in why I went into this job. I thought, well, if he can work in finance and do all of this stuff, maybe I can as well. I went into a finance position, which is so weird because I've got no degree in finance, no nothing, but it was a friend of a friend who needed me to fill in for someone who was going on maternity leave at this finance firm. It was at commercial mortgage-backed securities, which if you know anything about that, thoughts and prayers. Just business. It's business. It's business. Wall Street and big banks and shoulder pads and all that. And I went in there and I gave it my all. I gave it my college try. I did what I would do with this job that I would do with any passion project. I wanted to prove myself to myself and everyone else that I could do something that was out of my comfort zone and that was really hard and that I would learn immense lessons from it. But you know what happened? I ended up getting stuck there. I ended up doing such a good job in the first year that I got promoted and I had my own department, which I thought was great. I'm like, hey, I'm walking around, I got my own department, I get to have a poke bowl for lunch, this is great. I get to buy power suits, lovely. I got stuck there. I got stuck making money, what I thought was a lot of money for me, because I had never had that much money before. And looking back, it wasn't that much, but it was like a job. I'd gone from working in nightclubs and scratching around for dollars and coat check and doing all this stuff to finally have an honest-to-God job where I was making money and I was comfortable and I was grateful and I had all these friends. It was wonderful. I loved it. However, that creeping question kept being asked of myself every night I went to bed. Do you really want to be working in finance? What do you really want to do? It was that same question from Letters to a Young Poet. The poet asking the young poet, can you answer that question honestly? And I kept asking myself, and the answer was, I think so. I think so is never enough. It's a qualifier. No. No qualifiers. You are qualified enough to know yourself. Just strip away the nonsense. So I kept asking myself, and eventually one day I realized, no, I actually don't want to work here, but I'm stuck now. I'm stuck because I'm making money, and I have this apartment, and I have all of these friends, and this is great, and I want to keep up my lifestyle. It was too hard to break away from. When I say my lifestyle and the money, I'm telling you, it really wasn't as much as you think. Looking back, I'm like, all right, well, that's great, but I was just very excited to have a big person job. So I started working harder, was my response. I started working more hours at this job. I started studying the business I was working in to really try and get into it. I thought, I can really do this. I can really beat this. I can do this. I started having more expectations put on me at my job. I started having more pressure, more stress, and the stress eventually got to me. It really got to me. By my second year of working at this job, I was a shell of my former self. I was, the lights were on, but no one was home. People didn't really know who I was anymore. My friends said I was just always at work. I would come home, I would go to sleep, or I would just, play Overwatch, and it was really bad. I would barely go outside anymore. I lost a huge passion for life. That person I was before I left New Zealand was completely gone. They were buried under all of this adult stuff. And it was so sad. It was horrible. And I didn't know how to get out of it. It got worse. More stress, more hours. Suddenly I was slipping up. I wasn't doing such a good job anymore at work. My boss was, I can't blame her, but she was very overbearing. And one day I went to her and I said, look, I am struggling, but I will do this job. I will get this done. And I understand there are people who have worked here who have been so stressed that they have taken their lives, and they have, ruined relationships and all sorts of things. And her response was something along the lines of, you have to be grateful to have a job. Every day that I come into this office, I realize that I could lose it at any given moment. That was her response. That always was the response, was you should be grateful to be here, and you could lose your job at any given moment, and you are replaceable. I feel that was the last straw for me. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Do I blame this person? Not really. She was a woman working in finance, and she worked really hard to get where she was. She had a lot to lose, just like I did. But she was certainly not going to lose anything if it was a result of me. So she made sure that I did the work. And I remember one night I was working very late at this job. And I had this deal. I had this deal that I had to close that evening. I had to send out all the files. I had to get everything done. I was the only person in the office. I went to go and make a hot cup of coffee. I went back to my computer. I put the coffee down. I stared at the monitor. I blinked. And I went to pick up my coffee, and it was cold. The coffee was completely stone cold. And I looked at the time on the monitor, and 2 hours had gone by. 2 hours had gone by. I had fallen asleep with my eyes open. It's not funny, but I look back and I think, wow, I was in actual medical danger. I was in medical danger. But I kept going. I finished the deal. I did the thing. Kept going. Next week, I was working again. And I was on the phone with somebody. And suddenly, my words wouldn't work anymore. My speech became slurred, and I started to slow down my thought process. My hand was on the phone, and I said to the person, I have to go. Shut it down, and I just grabbed my bag and I walked out of there. I didn't know where to go. All I could remember was walking on the Midtown Avenue. I was walking past the JP Morgan Bank building where I'd gone many times to meet people. And I was looking at my reflection as I walked past in the window, and it was just this absolute shell of a person. It was like Gollum, but taller and with better hair. I did not look good. I did not look good. So I took out my calculator out of my handbag, and I went onto my sorry, I need to move my fan. I'm shaking a little. I called a family member. And I said nothing. I couldn't say anything. I was shaking. My body was not working. My speech wasn't making sense. And all I could hear on the other side of my phone was this family member asking, where are you? Describe where you are. Describe where you are. Tell me where you are. I will come and pick you up. And I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't speak. I'm completely drained. So I just started walking. I started walking through all of the streets that I'd known and come to love of New York City. I was looking at everything with different eyes. I thought, I came here to be an artist. I came here to win an Oscar. I did not come here to be eaten by banks. No. So I kept walking, and I kept walking, and I kept walking, avoiding cars. I kept walking, and I found my family member's apartment. Thank God he was home. He let me in. He started doing breathing exercises with me. We were looking each other in the eye. He was calming me down. Eventually, my patterns of speech returned, and I was able to tell him what happened. He said, you need to get out of there. And I said, I can't. I can't leave. I've put all this work in. What the hell am I going to do now? And he said, well, just look after yourself. So I went to the doctor, made sure I was, all good. He said the same thing. You need to leave. Of course, didn't listen. I kept going. But, what was very interesting is after that day, after my speech patterns went and everything, and I felt like I'd lost myself, something incredibly magical happened. Something incredibly magical happened. I went with this family member. We went on a very long walk through Central Park, with the destination being the museum. Which museum was it? The one with the history. the Minnesota Museum of whatever in New York. We're walking around, we're talking about our family and just really grounding ourselves. And something in me just changed that particular day. This was immediately after this particular burnout. As I now know what it was a burnout. Horrible burnout. And something in me just it didn't come back, it never left, but it peeked out from underneath all of this crap. And it said, hey, I'm still here. The wee granny that I was before I left, popped out and said, I'm still frickin' here, and I still want to do things, and it's going to take a lot more than a bunch of banks to bring you down. You can do this. I literally stopped giving a feck for the first time in a long time, and it felt wonderful. The next day, I walked back into my office. It was so weird. It was like I knew exactly what to say to everybody. I was so cheeky. I was so cheeky to my boss. I made people laugh. I was making people happy in this bizarre environment where we're not appreciated. I was staying there late to talk to people about their problems because I felt I've got all the time in the world for myself. I need to give myself time. All the time that I've lost here doesn't matter. Don't think about it. It's time to focus on myself. And I really started listening to people again. I was able to listen to the world even. It was like being hyper sensitive all of a sudden. It was so interesting. It was like seeing the world through the eyes of a child. I was so curious. And you know what I learned is that there are so many situations where we are too polite or we are too scared of looking stupid, so we won't say something or do something. Don't worry about it. Just say it. Just say what you mean to say. I swear, whoever's listening will appreciate you and probably be a little taken aback sometimes by you just being honest. For me, I felt like no one was really listening to each other anymore. People were just yelling words at each other. No one was learning. There's a saying that I love that if you walk into a room full of people thinking you know everything and you never listen to a single person, you will quickly become the dumbest person in that room. When you really listen and hear people, it does something to you that is so primal, I can't even explain it. Not only does it make the other person feel so humanized and happy to be heard, it gives you a connection. Before any of this stuff was here, before Twitch, before anything, there were people listening to each other. And it doesn't matter if you do it over the internet, you do it over a phone call, you do it in person. People need to know that they're being heard. And that's what I was really finding out in my office. People were just not being heard. That was the problem. I brought this to my boss's attention. They don't care. They didn't care. They did not care. They didn't care. And I realized, I can't work here anymore. I can't do it. So, what I did is I set myself a challenge, all right? Granny, you feel more confident with yourself. You feel like you can do this. Why don't you try and wait them out? Do the worst possible job you can without affecting the business itself. Do the bare minimum, basically. And wait for them to fire you. Wait for them to fire you so you get your severance. And that's what I did. I just did the bare minimum. I clocked in at 10 a.m. and I went home at 5 p.m. and if people said, "Where are you going?" I went, "Home. I'm going home." Oh, it was wonderful. They're like, "Oh, that woman gives no shites. It's so wonderful." This is great. So also around this time, I know this is a very long story, but, it's it's what it is. It's important, and I hope that some of you are hoping to learn something from this, but around this time, I was invited to a party on Fire Island. And I mentioned to you before that I hadn't really been leaving my apartment very much. I'd become quite agoraphobic, really. Quite agoraphobic. I just was not good in large crowds. I was so used to just having my own little schedule where I go to work and I come home and I eat my food and I go to bed and I go again and be miserable. I'd become so accustomed to my misery and loneliness that I had forgotten that I was brave once. And so I said, okay, I'm going to go to this party. So there was this theme. There was a theme, and the theme was time travel. So I went to this party. I brought my handbag. I wore my best casino glasses. I wore my blouse. I wore all of it in flats because there's a lot of sand, dears. And I wandered around this party with the intention of making people laugh. And it was so funny. It was so hilarious. I went around all these different people, handing all of these thirsty party goers water bottles because they looked thirsty, or fishing around in my purse to give them a tic-tac so they can freshen their breath. It was so fun. I felt so alive. And I got up on that stage at one point with all of these people watching, and I just danced with all of these other people dressed up, and I thought, yes, this is amazing. I am here. I'm back. I love this. I really felt like I was back again, and it was a great experience. It was so good. So anyway, I did a few more things. Like I would go out to nightclubs with my friends, and I'd get all ready, and I'd go out, and people thought it was great. They thought it was so fun. They thought it was so good. I was like, oh, it's so nice that you're inviting an elderly person up in this gig. Thank you so much. So I kept going with my job, and in conjunction with doing all this outside stuff and reconnecting with myself, I was really going back on the road of getting exhausted again. I was really getting there. So I finally got to a point at the job where they went, it's been really great working with you, but here's your severance and you're done. And I was like, great, because I just won the Halloween raffle yesterday. There was a Halloween raffle where you had to guess how many candy corns were in a pumpkin jar, and I guessed it correctly, and I got a whole hoard of candy, and I walked out of there with my severance and a big thing of nerds. Joke's on you. So from there, I went back, and I had no job. I had absolutely no job. And I was so thrilled that they had finally let me go. I was so thrilled that they'd finally let me go. And then I realized I had no plan. I had no plan. I didn't know what to do. I went home, and I sat there and thought, well, what the hell am I gonna do now? What am I going to do now? I have no job. I'm in New York City. I have this apartment. What the feck am I going to do? But I thought, Granny, no. The first step was getting out of there, and you've done it. First and foremost, I looked after myself. I got through the hard part. Now, this next part is important, because you might think, oh, it's over. She discovered herself. She walked through Central Park, and she saw the light. I did, but then you got to keep it up, dears, and you've got to also look after yourself. I could not keep up that energy. I was doing so much stuff. I burnt out again. I just was so overwhelmed that I had left this job. I'd finally completed my goal of waiting them out to get my severance, and I just didn't leave the house. I did not leave the house, and this is interesting. Around this time was when Red Dead Redemption 2 came out. And one of my greatest and most dearest friends is a developer at Rockstar. And he came home, and he threw the disc at me, and he said, here's something to do while you have no job. And I said, oh, thanks so much. Thank you so much. So I played Red Dead Redemption. That was my job. That's all I did. I just played Red Dead Redemption 2. That's all I did. I woke up, played Red Dead, went to bed. Red Bed Redemption. That's all I did. I just played it, and then I realized I was more comfortable being in that world than I was in the outside world. I didn't want to leave the apartment. I was like, oh, not this again, but also this again. Here I am again. And it just got worse and worse to the point where I'm like, darn, I'm stuck at the bottom of this well again, and I just got out of it. This is terrible. So that's mistaken valuable lesson. Yes, you can get out of the well, but you've got to keep yourself out of it. Seeing the bottom of the well should encourage you to do well. And I'd forgotten that part. I stayed inside. I probably didn't leave my apartment for 4 to 5 months. I did not go outside. I went out once for a doctor's appointment. I went out another time to pick up something from the post office. And being in a crowd made me sweat. It made me look like completely disassociated. I didn't want to be there. Could not go outside. It was horrifying. I mean, the effects of burnout are so unexplainable until you've felt them yourselves. I don't know how to describe it. It's just a complete suck of your energy and your personality, and it just really sucked. It wasn't great. But fortunately, I had a very good friend, the same person who worked at Rockstar, and he contacted the hobbits in New Zealand and said, "Hobbits, your granny needs help. Please, can you look after her, show her some nature, and just see if we can get her back to how she was before?" So I did. I went and I started staying with my hobbits down in New Zealand. Took a long while to start going outside again and interacting with people. And it still doesn't ever feel normal. I don't think it ever will. It's just something I will probably have to get used to over time, being in crowds and interacting with strangers. I mean, I tell you, getting on the phone with someone I don't know, this is not an unusual thing. But oh my goodness, even when I get on Discord, when I'm talking to a streamer I've never talked to before, oh my god, my heart, I get so frightened. But the only way for me to get better is to keep exposing myself naturally over time in little increments, and I will get there. I will get there. I'm determined. I've gotten through all of that other stuff. I'm sure I can do this. But being in New Zealand, a lot of people are like, why did you move to New Zealand? I really just needed to be somewhere away from crowds. I needed to be somewhere very peaceful, very natural, somewhere to recover and focus on myself. So that was 2019, I think, February. I came home here to the Hobbit home. February 2019, Valentine's Day. And I sat here and I thought, well, what the hell am I going to do now? I am in no contact with anyone down here. I'm away from my entire life in New York, which I miss dearly. So I thought, well, I keep playing Red Dead Redemption and I love Red Dead Redemption. Why don't I stream? Why don't I try streaming? And yeah, I'm not really sure, because if you talk to people I don't know, I was a bit anxious about it. And I got in voice chat one day while playing Red Dead Online, and I heard these voices, and they were off in the distance somewhere, and I started talking, and they were laughing. They were laughing at what I was saying, like, oh my god, I'm making people laugh online. This is great. I love this. I love this. I love this. So I became friends with them. They became friends of mine. We would get in voice chats all the time and talk. And eventually, one of them said, "You should stream. Why don't you stream?" Oh, okay. I guess I could. I'll give it a go. So I tried streaming. The first stream was a disaster. I had no sound. A couple of streams after that, I finally kind of got the hang. Finally got some practice down. And I thought, well, March 18th, I'm coming back from a trip. I am going to have my first scheduled stream. I'm going to have a schedule. It's going to be like a job, because for me, I work best with a schedule. If I don't have a schedule, I'm not turning up. But like, I just stay in bed. What could be better than being unconscious, I ask myself. So I made the schedule. March 18th was my first official stream. And I did it. I just kept going. I just really got a kick out of making people laugh. But what was also very important, and what is always important for this channel, is I wanted to create a place where...
Now please have
bread. I wanted to create a place where people could go and just escape and laugh and maybe be reminded of something they found funny as a child. I wish for everyone that you could see the world the way that a child looks at it, where you're just curious, you've got no qualms, you're not scared of looking stupid. Because this old lady's here screaming on the internet, doing God knows what on her typewriter. If she can do it, so can you. The message has always been, no matter who you are, where you have been, or where you're going, you're always going to have a place here where you are welcome like family. Because some of us need to be reminded that we are more than labels. We are more than jobs. We are more than what has been manufactured over ourselves. You're always in there, and make sure you let them out to play, dears. Children are full of wonder. Adults are full of knowing. The less you wonder, the less curious and happy you are about the world. So make sure you keep on listening to people. Really listen to people. Look after yourselves and know that anything is possible if you just throw your heart out in front of you and run ahead to catch it. I was in a really shite spot. I was in a really dangerous position. And I got out by being listened to and by listening to myself, most importantly. If you ever look out the window and you're just feeling emptiness and you're feeling like there's nothing left, you are a liar. There is so much left. You are still here. And there is so much left for you to do. You just wait. You just wait. The more errors you have made, the better. Each error is just a quicker route.
I'm about to burst.
To a success. So I thank each and every one of you for being here on this journey of 2 years so far, for believing in whatever nonsense is on here. I could not thank you enough for what you have helped me create. And you're all responsible. You are all responsible. This community is so blessed. It is so mixed. There are so many different types of people here. And I love that. I love that you are helping for bridges to be built between different types of groups and communities. I like that walls are being broken down. I love that there are people believing in others more than they are believing in themselves, as T-Pain said. That's what it's all about. Ignore the bullshit and take away what's useful from every interaction you have. And I need to be reminded of this all the time. I need to be reminded of this all the time. But each time I turn on this camcorder and I fire up my typewriter and Jilbo Swaggins brings me a tin and tonic at 5 p.m., I am reminded that I am safe, I am happy, and I am incredibly grateful to be where I am. No matter how irritating a day can be, no matter what happens. I feel
foot massage.
good.
Blessed man less than 3.
I feel good. And that you don't have to feel amazing. You just have to feel good. It's like, you know, when you got a stuffy nose and you got to remember breathing. That's how it feels when you're deeply, deeply in the dumps. Is remember feeling things. Feeling something is a wonderful thing, no matter what it is, dears. So keep being sensitive, keep being curious, and keep asking yourself that one question at nighttime.
Whoa!
It helps.
This is a strong message.
Thank you
I
so
love
much.
how loud that
Granny.
is.
Just thank you.
Uncle Matthew, thank you for the $50, dear. Jelly, Yuri, thank you for the $20. So, that is the story of how this channel started. It's the story of how it got here. It was created almost out of necessity, if anything. It really was, and I love that. I love that, but never give up, dears. You must never, ever give up. Don't be too hard on yourselves. The most useful thing I did during that stupid part where I was stuck in that job, and if you are stuck in a job right now you don't want to be in, but it's money and you're stuck there and you just gotta stay, think about this. Give yourself a very kind but fair critic. Screw your own opinions. Give yourself a very kind but fair critic. And give it the voice of someone you look up to, maybe a family member, a loved one. Hell, it could even be Morgan Freeman. Let that person speak for you when you are trying to have an opinion about yourself.
Granny, I love you and hope
Kind
you
but
realize
fair.
how many people look up to you. You mean so much to all of us.
Thank you for the $3, Graham. Thank you, dear. So that is the lore. That's the lore. I finally told it. That is the lore. I hope that someone in here gained something. I really do. And just know that you must listen first and foremost to yourself. Really figure out what you're doing, and you will be happy. I promise you, dear. I promise you. Oh my goodness, I have to think. Hang on. Okay, let me see if I can speed run. Let me see if I can speed run here. No, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing your time and being here. Thank you so. Join stream, and that was the lore.